Hello and welcome to the 18th episode of Comic Book Direct. I'm your host, Ian.
Bad.
That was bad? Come on, that was flawless. There is nothing that could be better than that.
Pasta.
You try. Try
Pasta
it.
could have been better.
I dare you to try this intro better than me.
Hello and welcome to the 18th episode of Comic Book Direct.
That was flawless.
That was flawless.
I stand corrected. I guess you should just take over at this point. Everyone disregard our previous podcasts and the intros that they respectively had, because clearly I am not up to par with our co-host, who is now actually the host.
I'm your host, Ethan.
And I am your humble co-host, Ian.
Humble, lowly co-host.
Yeah, humble, lowly. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir.
Thank you.
No problem.
I appreciate the respect.
Yeah, well, you need that boost in self-esteem more than I do. All right, so getting right into it, we are talking today about our favoritist of villains and why exactly we like them so much. I've got a couple that I'm going to talk about. I don't know how many you have, but let's launch right into it with one of my very favorite villains.
And what would that be?
Tommy from the Block.
Ooh.
Oh yeah. That was a long drawn reference to episode 17. Or earlier or something like that. But 17 is around the general range, if you feel me.
Could be.
Could be.
Could be.
You know what? Listen to all of our episodes and just skip the intro because obviously, worthless. But every other part of that is pure gold. Pure platinum, diamond, gold encrusted, plated silver.
Shameless plug.
Thank you. So, my favoritist of villains from the DC universe has got to be... No guesses?
No guesses.
All right, Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor is so cold and calculating, and even though he can be a little bit dry at points, when he's written well, I feel like he's got some of the best stories. Like, I loved Lex Luthor, Man of Steel. That was one of my favorite villain-centered stories, just because it had great art. It had a great depiction of Lex Luthor as someone who wants to help the world, and a good depiction of Lex Luthor as someone who's powerful and who sees Superman really as an antagonist rather than himself as an antagonist. And I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about, and I like the kind of spin where the villain's helping the world, but still for kind of his own means.
And it's also like he sees himself as pretty righteous. Like, one of my other favorites is Dr. Doom, and I feel like they share the same traits in many ways. Like, Dr. Doom sees himself as doing right for the world because he's got this crusade to stop the world from devolving into, whatever garbage that he foresaw in his vision.
Actually, that's really a good segue into my character.
Well, too bad, Buster. Here's a different segue. Pancakes are delicious. Try segueing off that.
Speaking of pancakes, in Magneto Volume 1, Issue 1, it kind of starts off in a diner. Diner, pancakes, breakfast, all day, every day. Anyway,
I submit. I surrender. You win. I thought I'd try to take back my host position, but nope, it was kept.
One of my favorite villains is Magneto, because he's justified in himself. He believes that he's doing the right for mutant kind,
Right.
he has to destroy others to save all mutants.
Right, yeah. And that's a common thing. I feel like there are two types of villains that people like, and if you like one, you probably won't like the other very much, in most cases at least. So there's the villains who feel like they're heroes, and then there's the villains who are villainous for the sake of being villainous, you know? Like Joker, or, why am I having trouble thinking of it? I've got this character in my mind right now, and he just does not want to.
You just slip your mind?
Carnage. That's one of the ones I love. He evil for the sake of being evil in most every case, right? And that's usually the crazier villains, or how we perceive as crazy. But I feel like I tend to lean more towards the heroic type of villains, where I can really understand their motivations and see myself as going down that path. Like, if I just made one wrong decision or saw the world in a different way, I feel like that's something I could identify with, you know?
Right, it shows you how, anyone could be susceptible to villainy.
Right, and in the Killing Joke, I will admit, like, I just sort of complained about Joker, but there is a point where he talks about just one bad day, where anyone can become a villain with just this so-called one bad day, and I feel like that's true, but that's not really. I mean, Joker had a lot of bad days to get to the point where he's at. Like, he's a little bit of a psychopath. Like Ethan, for example, my co-host. He's
Host.
had. Sorry.
Main host.
Man, good grief. All right. Like Ethan, my co-host. He's had several bad days, and that have led him there. But I feel like the basis for that quote is true, is accurate, but I don't feel like that happened more with Joker, but rather with, the villains who perceive themselves as heroes, like in Doctor Doom's case. And like I said, he's one of my favorite villains. He had one bad day. Well, he had a few, but they were.
He's just a little bit schizophrenic.
They were like isolated points, right? So you could point to his mother's death as one of the driving factors behind his villainy, or you could point to the time when he got that vision that showed him the future of the world and showed that he was the only one who would be able to prevent that apocalyptic future. You could show that, or you could go and you could point out his father's death after trying to save the Baroness, where that could be the one distinguishing factor. But overall, there are more. I feel like they're more normal. Like Doctor Doom and Lex Luthor are more normal because they just had this one point, or maybe at the most 5 points, where they truly turn to evil, whereas Joker and Carnage, they've been kind of shaping it up their whole lives, right?
Right, and as I was mentioning, my favorite villain,
right,
who's Magneto, he, it's almost the same.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of has this one cause, really, that he's against. He doesn't want his people...
What cause is that?
He doesn't want all the mutants to be killed, He wants to kind of protect his own people.
Right.
But there's definitely major points you can see where, oh, hey, this would take a toll on him. Like when his kind of safe haven for mutants was attacked and destroyed, and some 13 million mutants died. That's kind of a little bit bad.
And in his childhood, when his Well, first off, he's a survivor of a concentration camp. Like, that's a pretty brutal thing in and of itself. And seeing all that hatred can both can either harden you against that hatred or subtly bring you to have more of a propensity to commit similar acts of violence and, that sort of thing. And I think the turning point for him was when his wife and his children were killed. That was one of the major points that led him to where he was. But yeah, I can see how he would be a villain that's similar to Doctor Doom and everything.
So yeah,
all right, I'll go with my favorite villain now. Are you ready to hear it?
No.
Oh. Do you have something else to say?
I do not.
All right, then I'm going to do it anyways. Are you ready?
Go ahead.
The Hood. And I'm not talking about Red Hood. I'm talking about Marvel's The Hood. Really, I just like characters with the in it. If you don't have the in your name,
The.
then you aren't my favorite character.
Ooh.
Like the Doctor Doom or the Lex Luthor,
Right.
Naturally. This is a character that not a lot of people know about, which makes him all the more interesting to me. But he has so much power over the years. Like, he's been one of the only people to successfully put together a major crime syndicate in a major city that's full of supervillains. You know how hard supervillains are to collect into a team, right? We've seen the Thunderbolts, we've seen countless other incarnations of supervillain teams that have just failed so utterly.
Yeah, with the supervillain sort of ego. They
Right.
each want to be in charge.
Absolutely. But Hood has that right kind of leadership, generosity when he needs to be, and sense of intimidation that's really gotten him far in the crime world. And what's cool is that he was only a human until he found equipment that made him a little bit on the superhuman side. But still, he's very human. He's very cool and calculating, and I wouldn't say he's one of the same types of people as Lex Luthor and Doctor Doom and Magneto, like you were saying. He's kind of from a crime background, and he's pretty much always been kind of a rebellious little kid. But what he does with that is not always evil, which gives him depth. Like, he has an old grandmother, right?
Right.
And she has dementia, and she can't even remember her own son. Son.
Grandson?
Grandson, that's what I meant.
That's what you meant.
When he comes to visit her, right? And he has a little bit of a relationship with the occult.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Marginal, Just brush up against him once in a while. But because of his powers, they stem from Dormammu. And so he decides to do a deal with Dormammu, which, as you've heard the popular expression, don't deal with Dormammu, because he's a bad person.
Right.
Yeah, and he's got a pumpkin for a head.
It's got that little jingle, don't deal with Dormammu because he's a bad person, right, and he has a pumpkin to his head.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure you've all heard that one countless times. But yeah, so he trades part of his life in order to get his grandmother's back. Now, that's not necessarily effective long term, but his motivations were in the right place. But then, conversely, he's also got a very evil and manipulative side. He works with these villains very well. And he's worked with other villains, including the Illuminati, which is one of the top villain groups that I've seen in Marvel Comics, with Doctor Doom and Loki and several others. And he's gotten the Infinity Stones at one point. He got the Norn Stones. Norn Stones, I think. And both of those are reality manipulating devices, and they're extremely powerful, extremely coveted, and the fact that he was able to acquire them is incredible. One last note for him is that I love the way he controls everybody around him. Manipulation is, for me, the most important sign of a villain. If they can manipulate other people well, then they've got the advantage in the world. And he does so by providing them what they need, like the money, the cash, whatever. And he also only gives them enough to make what he wants happen. And in doing so, it keeps them at bay, but also keeps his pockets full. All right, so anything else to add?
I think that's about it. Let's go into our reads of the week.
You know what? Let's not.
Let's not.
We're just going to leave for about 20 minutes. You guys stay there, just relax or whatever. Okay, we're back. That was a seamless transition. Could you believe it?
I could.
Are you full?
I am full of it.
Of nothing. Yeah, exactly. So, reads of the week. What are yours?
Magneto. Issues 1 through 5.
Beautiful.
They were pretty good. I was just talking about Magneto. He's a great villain, you know. He's interesting because in this issue series, he's weaker than he usually is because of something that happened. They don't really go into it until later on, so I'm gonna not spoil it or anything. But it's really interesting to see him in this way. He's doing things, as he call it, like more conventional, you know, kind of having, instead of just ripping the place out of the ground and destroying it, he has to go in through the door, get the woman, use the computer, and blow it up.
Oh, how boring. No.
Right.
Obviously, it isn't the best depiction of Magneto from what you were telling me earlier, but you enjoyed it, right?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was
worth
cool.
the read.
Yeah.
All right. So, one of my reads this week was Karnak number 4. And I know I'm kind of repeating some series, but this will give you sort of an update on how Karnak is going. Right? My first reviews of Karnak, each issue over time, were pretty good. I've been saying and ranting and raving about how good Karnak is, right?
Yes.
But it's reached issue 4, and they still haven't given explanations for many of the things, and it's just grown kind of tiring. There's a lot of great action I love, but the artist who was on the first issue is no longer there, and that's sort of disappointing. And they seem to keep leading up with every issue to some grand reveal, to some grand explanation, but they never explain anything, and it ends up being 10 pages of action, or just walking into a tower, but and then 10 pages of usually meaningless dialogue, and then the extra 2 that actually give you some sense of the story, and really just don't give you enough. So
and for these type of issues, they only come out like once every month or two, so you kind of want to give as much as possible.
Right. They're not really doing well at keeping me hooked. I'll still read them. I still like the character, and I think the writer has been doing a good job when they have been writing. but there's just too much filler that I feel should be replaced with genuine, you know, content. And then my final read of the week that I'll talk about is the preview for Rebirth, which is very exciting. It looks like we're incorporating Watchmen into the mainstream DC universe.
That will be interesting.
And yeah, I really don't know how Alan Moore feels about it, the writer of Watchmen, because that wasn't something he wanted to happen with Watchmen, but I feel like it was kind of inevitable just because of the nature of DC. You sell your rights to DC, and they will sell it directly to Dormammu, which, as we've said before, not a good idea.
Don't deal with Dormammu because that's bad. Really, he has a pumpkin on his head.
Perfect quote. But yeah, I'm excited to see where they're going. I hope they don't change any of the Watchmen continuity, because that story was pretty self-contained and pretty important by itself. That was weird. But yeah, it looks like Dr. Manhattan's coming in, and that's kind of interesting. I'm very excited for Rebirth. It looks like one of the best comic events for a long time, and if they pull this off, it could be a redefining comic for the next generation or so. I'm excited for it.
What's on the line?
Everything, kiddo. All right. So, moving on to our we're moving
questions.
Backwards in time to our reads of the week. No, we're going to questions of the week here. And, they can be comments too. This time they're not. They are questions. So remember, you can contact us either through our email, which is
comicbookdirect@gmail.com.
I'm not spelling it. COMICBOOK?
DIRECT.
You lied.
I was spelling it.
Man, first the host position, now my spelling? That hurts. That hurts a great deal. Alright, so you can also find us on comicbookdirect.weebly.com, and that is spelled the same way, coincidentally enough. There, you can actually send in a question or comment directly. And whatever you want to say, whatever you want to ask, we're ready to hear it from you. All right, so let's hear it from these guys. To preserve a sense of the unknown, a sense of anonymity, we're going to give them a fake name. Ethan.
The name they shall have today is Applestrong.
Applestrong writes, and it's very in-depth here. Who's your favorite mutant?
My favorite mutant? I'm thinking along the lines of X-Men, because they have some mutants.
Yeah, that's a good one to think about.
They got a couple of them.
Yeah.
One or two, maybe.
Oh. I don't... this kind of doesn't technically count, but he hangs out with the mutants so often that I'm going to put him in with them. All right, and he thought he was a mutant for a while. So, Phantom X. He is also
sounds like
little
a
known
Kleenex
about.
Brand.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he's a great character. He's kind of a schizo French robot thing, and he is great. I love him. He is so suave and so weird, and his Phantom X Max series was one of my favorite Max series, and I didn't even know it existed. So check out that. That is interesting. What's yours?
Just because I like magic tricks and I enjoy card games and everything.
Let me guess.
Don't.
Okay.
Don't guess.
Jack of Hearts.
Jack of Hearts is correct. No.
Yes.
Gambit.
Okay.
I enjoy Gambit. I think his throwing cards and everything is pretty cool.
Ooh, let me guess.
Yeah?
Zatanna.
Yes.
Oh, thank goodness. First try.
No, but I like Gambit. He's a good mutant, I guess.
Nice.
I mean, he throws stuff, so that's pretty powerful.
All right, and we actually have a second question this week, and this one is much more in-depth.
This one is from hand exercises.
Hand exercises, right. How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop?
We talking full size?
No, like halfway eaten.
12.
12?
12.
That sounded very premeditated.
That's all from us today. Thank you. Have a great week.
And remember, the correct answer was actually 48.
It was 12.
Okay. You're the host, I guess. You're the captain now. All right. Well.
Find us on Spreaker, on YouTube, on everything. Bye.
Bye forever and ever and ever and ever.